Hi und herzlich willkommen im Neuanfang-Podcast. Die Mission dieses Podcasts ist, dazu beizutragen, dass mehr Menschen einander mit offenem Herzen begegnen. Er bewegt dich dazu, dich daran zu erinnern, wer du wirklich bist und macht dir Mut, dein wahres Selbst zu leben. Ich bin Sarah Heinen, zertifizierter Coach für Authentizität, seit 2017 Creator des Neuanfang-Podcasts, Human Design Begeisterte und über 10 Jahre auf dem Weg, mein Leben möglichst täglich in Einklang mit meinem authentischen Selbst zu gestalten und zu genießen. Wie schön, dass du heute im Neuanfang-Podcast dabei bist, denn ich freue mich sehr, ein wundervolles Gespräch mit dir teilen zu können, in dem es vor allen Dingen um die 3 Lebensphasen der 6. Profillinie im Human Design geht und mit im Fokus auf die dritte Phase ab 50. Denn die wundervolle Frau, mit der ich spreche, die ist bereits seit 10 Jahren in dieser dritten Phase, das heißt, die kann dazu ein bisschen was sagen. Und das ist Uma Girish. Uma ist 6'2", mentale Projektorin. Sie ist aufgewachsen in Indien, lebt heute aber in den USA. Das heißt, das Gespräch ist auf Englisch und wenn das eine Herausforderung für dich ist, dann empfehle ich dir, das Ganze auf YouTube anzuschauen, denn da kannst du Untertitel dazu schalten. Und Uma ist Autorin, sie ist spirituelle Mentorin für Frauen, die sich verloren fühlen. Vor allen Dingen verloren in Phasen der Trauer. Und dabei ist es ganz egal, ob die Trauer durch den Tod eines geliebten Menschen ausgelöst wurde, durch ein Beziehungsende oder durch einen Identitätsschiff, zum Beispiel, wenn man Mutter wird oder aber in die Rente geht. Und dabei ist es die Mission, die Uma verfolgt, Menschen in diesen Phasen ein Gefühl von Sinn und Bestimmung zu geben. Das heißt, wir teilen ganz viele Ansichten über die Themen Authentizität und Bestimmung und Purpose. Das heißt, auch darum wird es im Gespräch gehen. Und vor allen Dingen lege ich dir dieses Gespräch ans Herz, weil Uma wirklich eine, ja, für mich schon fast zauberhafte Energie mitbringt. Und wie wir beide uns kennengelernt haben, das verraten wir dir gleich am Anfang des Gesprächs. Ich lege dir dieses Gespräch auch ans Herz, natürlich, wenn du selber eine 6. Linie in deinem Human Design Profil hast. Vielleicht bist du ja auch eine 6'2", wie Uma und wie ich ja auch. Oder aber auch zum Beispiel, wenn du wenige Zentren nur in deinem Human Design Chart definiert hast. Denn als mentale Projektorin hat Uma nur 2 definierte Zentren und sie spricht auch darüber, was das für ihren Alltag bedeutet. Und bevor es jetzt gleich losgeht, wenn du ein 6'2 Profil in deinem Human Design hast, dann habe ich noch eine Einladung für dich. Am 23. Januar findet zum 2. Mal 6'2-Sam statt. Es ist ein Raum zum Austausch zwischen Menschen, die eben ein 6'2 Profil in ihrem Human Design haben. Und dieser Austausch war beim ersten Mal so wundervoll. Ich freue mich schon sehr, sehr, sehr auf diesen Abend. Und wir werden uns an diesem Abend vor allen Dingen auch über die dritte Lebensphase als 6. Linie austauschen, beziehungsweise darüber sprechen, was es bedeutet, ein Rollenvorbild zu sein. Und dann wird es dazu aber auch noch eine offene Fragen- und Themenrunde geben, wo du auch deine Ideen, deine Wünsche, deine Fragen mitbringen kannst und dich eben mit anderen austauschen kannst, die die Welt vielleicht ähnlich sehen wie du. Den Link dazu findest du in den Shownotes. Die Anmeldung ist jetzt geöffnet und noch bis auch zum 23. geöffnet. Und ich freue mich sehr, wenn wir uns da kennenlernen oder wiedersehen. Und jetzt wünsche ich dir aber erstmal ganz viel Freude im Gespräch mit Uma Girish. Welcome from the bottom of my heart, Uma. It's so nice to see you. It's so nice to have you on the podcast. You've been on my wish list for the podcast for quite some time now, and I'm so happy that we made it happen. I always start my podcasts with a minute of gratitude. And if I have a guest, I give it over to you. What are you most grateful for right now?
Thank you first of all for having me, Sarah. You and I have been friends for a while now, and I've really cherished our connection. So, as I think about gratitude, I really feel I'm grateful for you for this invitation to share today on your podcast and the connection that we've had. We share a birthday, and I just feel a special kind of connection with you because of that, I think. I think we get each other in a deeper way, and I'm grateful for all of that.
Oh, I'm grateful too. And yeah, it's kind of a crazy story how we met. We just talked before we hit record that I saw you in a gathering of people with 6'2" profile a few years ago with Mary Ann Winiger, and you didn't even know that that I saw you there. But a few years later, we met in Blueprint Pro, which is the pro community by Erin Claire Jones. And the funny thing is that we found out that just before we met in Blueprint Pro, you moved back from after living a few years in Düsseldorf back to the States. And
Yeah.
Düsseldorf is the neighboring town, which is like not even an hour away from Cologne, where I am. And then we found out we share a birthday. So, yeah, there's definitely something there. And because we share a birthday, we not only share our 6-2 profile, but we also share our incarnation cross. So, the
Mhm.
theme of our life, which is super interesting to meet someone who has the
Yeah.
same life theme, even though there are big differences in our charts as well. Maybe
Mhm.
you can tell a few key facts about your human design chart, and maybe if you also know that, your big three in your astrological chart, if you're open to share.
Yeah, I'm a Leo sun, Leo rising, and Libra moon. So I'm a double Leo, a lot of leadership energy there. And my conscious sun gate is gate 7 in human design. So gate 7 is the gate of leadership. It is, and my conscious earth is gate 13. So it's about leading through listening with empathy. That's the kind of leading I do. So it's not leadership as it relates to power and hierarchy, but I'm more sort of, I lead by how I live. And that's such a sixth line theme as well, right? I'm a mental projector, and I'm living the third phase of my sixth line, have been doing it for a decade now. So all of those themes sort of weave into this story of leadership for me.
Yeah, that's something that you embody so much for me, leading through listening. I remember our live calls in the community, and I think you also did a live reading there, if I remember correctly.
For a
And
manifester,
yeah,
yeah. A
yeah,
purpose
it
reading.
was yes, it was so beautiful because it's just such a beautiful energy that you exude, and the like the presence and the calmness that you bring to the table is, yeah. I think I called you once, and on my podcast I called you my Shiro or my female Buddha, because that's these are the qualities that I feel from you and that I cherish so much. Yeah,
That's
definitely.
so kind of you to share. Thank you.
The core of my work, and I know this is also a big topic for you, is authenticity. And because it's also very much tied to the sixth line. What does authenticity mean for you personally?
For a time, I was so annoyed by that word because it became a buzzword. Every bit of marketing copy you read had the word authentic or authenticity, and I felt that it was being bandied about. But to me, that word is very sacred because authenticity is unique to each person who takes on that word and makes it their own. That's how I feel about it. So to me, authenticity is being completely honest with myself so that I can be completely honest with the others in my life, whether that's my immediate family, my intimate partner, my inner circle, my clients, my community. Being authentic is about speaking and sharing my truth, and that often involves courage, standing in my power and agency. It means being okay with being unpopular. It means going against the current many times, most often going against the current. But when I stand by my convictions, I am here to empower others by modeling what self-empowerment looks like. Because my circuitry in my human design is all individual. So I'm here for me first. And by being fully me, I then inspire others to be fully themselves.
Yeah, that's so beautiful because I feel this like being a mental projector. I mean, I can't really feel how it feels because I am a generator. I have 7 centers defined. So that's the biggest difference between our charts.
Mhm.
So I feel being a mental projector in the world means way more often living against or going against the current compared maybe to generator types because we are living in a generator society. So I feel this is even more powerful coming from you than coming from someone whose human design is, yeah, maybe much more conform
Mhm.
to the general sense of how our society works, at least for the moment. So I'm really, yeah, I find it very powerful if you say, and I feel you embody it because you really live it. You walk the talk, and that's something that even though you are not super present everywhere on the internet, if someone comes into your world, I feel that is very palpable.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for saying that. Whereas you have seven centers defined, I have seven centers undefined. So I only have my ajna and throat defined as a mental projector. So all the power that I transmit into the world is through my ideas and opinions and communication. But I've had to work hard at deconditioning seven centers. That's a lot of work. But when I came to human design, I'd started the work of deconditioning through my spiritual awakening, which happened when I was in my mid 40s and lost my mother quite suddenly. We had just relocated to the United States from India, and 8 months after we moved here, she died in India. So that was sort of the moment of shattering for me, which just cracked me wide open. It started me on my spiritual path. And it was only probably 6, 7 years, almost 10 years later that I found human design. So I was in my mid 50s, 53, 54-ish when I found human design. And because of all the work I had done in terms of letting go and surrendering and trusting the divine to lead the way, the deconditioning process had already been set in motion. So just looking at my chart and seeing how much openness there is was again an invitation to dive deeper and know that, yeah, this is the life I came here to live and embody. So I don't have to be like anybody else. It's okay for me to be slow. I really love slow living. And with seven open centers, I'm so vulnerable and susceptible to absorbing energy from the outside world that I have to be really careful about who I surround myself with. There's a constant need to let go of energies that don't serve me, friendships that don't serve me, people that don't feel good energetically. So it's just been a constant and interesting learning curve for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm imagining that, as you said, having the courage to be disliked is
Mm,
something that you had to come up with often because if
mm,
you have to say no to people because you don't have the energy or you feel this is too much energy or the wrong energy that you don't
mm.
want to have in your life, in your body, um, how do you find that courage to be disliked? Because I feel that's kind of a big topic for people who want to live more authentically. The worry that I hear
Mhm.
most is the fear of being rejected and the fear of being disliked. So, what did or what does help you to come up with the courage to be disliked?
Well, you have to like yourself enough that you're willing to be disliked. So I think it starts with self-love and self-acceptance, which is so lacking, right, in the world today. The theme that runs through our world, the collective, is I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough, good enough, thin enough, intelligent enough, resourced enough, wealthy enough, whatever that is. There's some version of the I'm not enough story that is the collective narrative. And so to really step away from that and disengage from that narrative, it takes time, it takes work. It's no surprise that where the entire collective is most conditioned is the open ego. because everyone is trying to source worthiness from the outside. We seek external validation. There's a need for acceptance and belonging. And so it's easier to stay in people-pleasing mode and emotional caretaking of others than it is to look inside and say, what do I need? How can I honor myself before I'm looking outside of me to see who can make me feel like I'm enough? So I think it's also something that you move into in your 40s and 50s. You stop caring so much about other people's opinion. That's what it looked like for me. And for me, losing my mother was sort of a pivotal shift in many things, this being one of them. My mother lived the life of a chronic people pleaser. And I saw how much she suffered because she'd listen to one person and that would annoy the other person. And then she'd try her level best to take care of the other person's feelings and make sure they were okay so she could feel okay. And this was just her lifelong theme. And so growing up with a mother like that, I vowed never, ever to let other people's emotional wellness be the barometer of mine. And so I think I consciously walked away from this idea that I had to take care of everybody and everybody had to be okay so I could be okay. So that being my conscious awareness, that sort of inner compass that always guided my decision making, I then became very um, anchored in what do I feel about this? What do I think about this? What do I want to do? They became very conscious questions for me. But even so, you can't resist the pull of conditioning. We're all conditioned, if not friends, then you're trying to please family or you're trying to please people you work with. The dynamic emerges somewhere. And for me, that was in the family I was married to. In India, you don't just marry another human, you marry an entire family. So, I found my people-pleasing tendencies sort of rise to the fore when it came to them. But when my mother died, I realized that I could no longer carry on pleasing them and trying to be more like them so I would be accepted, simply because I grew up in a family where everyone showed emotion. It was acceptable to be emotional. My husband's family is exactly the opposite. They don't do emotions, they don't speak about anything negative, things are shoved under the rug. And I tried to be like that because I wanted to be accepted. But when my mother died and I had this flood of emotion erupt out of me, I knew I just had to be with my feelings. I knew I just had to cry an ocean of tears. And that's when I made a commitment to myself that I was going to do grief my way. I wasn't going to let somebody else's formula of holding it together and being strong and putting on a brave face for the world to guide me. And I think that was the moment when things began to shift because when you show a different face to the people who expect certain things from you, then you get pushback. And predictably, I got pushback, but I was okay with that because being loyal to me and my feelings, being faithful to my grief experience, felt like the most important way I could honor my mother. And I think from there on, I just started speaking my truth and making my own decisions and being okay with people who didn't get who I am. It also shifted things in my marriage because my husband didn't understand my spiritual awakening. And he began to look at me and say, who are you? You're no longer the person I married. So we had to navigate that. We're still married. We've been married 34 years, but there was a lot of growth and evolution that happened through my own personal shifting. And I had to give up the idea that I could please him, that I would do things he approved of. So there was that growing apart in order to grow back together again. So we both had to recognize that I had become a different person, and because I was changing the dance steps, he had to change them too. And that led to a lot of A lot of confusion, a lot of emotional dysregulation in the marriage, but also eventually coming together in a way that we both could honor the other's journey. So, leaning into authenticity has been a journey for me, and I think it'll continue to be a journey until the time I die.
Yeah, I guess so. Because I mean, if you have the feeling that you live authentically in one moment or one day or one year, living authentically 2 years later might look very different because you change and therefore your form of authenticity has to change because authenticity is always what is there, what is present right now. And if you're changing, your way of doing things or thinking about things has to change, and how you speak your truth because your truth changes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a very interesting topic for all six twos or all people with a sixth line in their profile because as six lines, human design says that we live these three phases of life from 0 to 30, roundabout 30 to 50, and 50 and onwards. And I often talk to people with six line profiles who, for example, ended their marriage around 30, or if they were married young,
Mhm.
or around 50, because exactly what you told about your marriage is that people get to meet one person or one version of you, maybe in
Mhm.
your early 20s or 30s, and then you change so much and your truth changes so much because you go through these three phases that it has to be a very strong relationship or a relationship where both partners are open on working through it and
Mhm.
accepting that the other person is changing maybe more than themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so true. And to go back to what you asked me, um, how did you begin your journey of authenticity? How do you model it so well? I go back to, you have to like yourself enough. And through all of this, I realized that the job of liking me is mine. The job of standing by the decisions I make is mine. It is nobody else's job to like what I'm doing, how I think about things, where I want to go, how I wish to live. It's not anybody else's job to affirm that. I just have to be, I just have to honor my own convictions and like myself enough, even when other people say, I don't like the choices you're making, or I don't like who you're becoming. Only then can the light of your authenticity shine brightly enough, because I think especially as six twos, the sixth line journey towards authenticity, in order to get there, we will have lessons of emotional caretaking and people pleasing and how to disengage from other people's approval. We will find ourselves in situations, families, friendships, work situations, opportunities that test those boundaries. And it is very purposeful. It is because the universe is trying to get us to move towards that place of what does the real you look like? And can you love the real you?
Yeah. And for me, a very practical thought is I am the only person that I have to spend my whole life with. Because, I mean, of
Yeah.
course, I hope that friends and family are by my side for a very long time, but you never know. Not your siblings,
Mhm.
not your parents, not your own kids, you never know. So, I have to be okay with what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what I'm doing. And I am the person that I am responsible for. And I am the person that, yeah, having to live with it sounds very negative, but I want to enjoy being me and being with me. And as you said, there were those lessons where I tried to be someone else, and it worked for a while, but then it became very exhausting. It made me sick,
Mm.
and then comes a point where you realize that it's impossible to please everybody because
Mhm.
as you said about your mother, when you please one person, the other one is not pleased,
Yeah.
and so on. And there are not only two people in your life, there are way more people in your life, and you become torn between all of them, and you lose yourself. And this journey of coming back to yourself and accepting that the only person that can change something about how you feel about yourself, how you think about yourself and your life, what decisions do you take is you. There's nobody else doing it for you. Yes.
Exactly. And the other thing that happens when we're constantly taking care of other people and making sure they're okay is this slow burn of resentment inside of us. On the outside, we have it together. We look like we're good girls. We're nice people. But on the inside, we don't like the choices we are making because we know there's a part of us that knows that we are not being true to ourselves. And so often for the sixth line that has to move into that phase of authentic living, role model living, we have to disengage from the need for external validation. And at the beginning, that might look like a lot of loneliness because friendships fall away. Sometimes we have to say no to family members. We have to begin to draw stricter boundaries. We may have to change jobs because people they don't see our gifts, they don't value our authentic expression. But from a state of loneliness, because we're so conditioned to external approval that it can feel like, oh my God, nobody sees me, nobody hears me, what am I doing here? And the addiction to connect from that place of, I need somebody to let me know I'm enough can be very strong. But from that place of loneliness, we can move to a place which is far more beautiful, and that's the place of conscious solitude. So when you're in the place of conscious solitude, you just love being with you. You don't need another distraction. The only kind of consciousness you have to engage with is your own. And that can be so freeing, especially for someone like me with 7 open centers, because I am just living in my aura. And it feels good to live in my aura. And I don't need to go looking for people to tell me I'm enough or to fill me up when I can do that for myself.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I experienced, even though I have 7 defined centers. Like this journey from FOMO and people falling away because I changed, and then all of a sudden feeling like the loneliest person on the planet. And then slowly but surely, in, yeah, a pretty difficult time, but a time I wouldn't change for anything. I learned to love the time with myself, and and now I'm addicted to the time with myself. Yeah.
When that becomes the default, it's so true. I mean, I can't wait to get back from vacation because vacations feel busy and harried and horrible. Being at home for me is the truest vacation. I feel so good just being here, doing the things I love to do at my pace and my rhythm. Nothing better than that.
Yeah, as two lines, we love our caves.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious how, or did you experience these 3 phases of the sixth line very clearly in your life? Like the first phase where it's all about experimenting and
Mm.
failing and yeah, learning a lot of lessons, and the second phase where it's more about going inward and reflecting all of that. And now the change from the second to the third phase, which you are already a decade in, as you said. Did you experience those 3 phases clearly, or was it not so obvious in your life?
I think the first 30 to about 33 years, it was very clear. Life was so chaotic. I felt like I was failing at a lot of things. And in retrospect, when I look back, my undefined identity center has the most number of gate activations. So for me, that's a very powerful center in terms of my life themes. And when I look back at the first 30 years of my life, yeah, it was all about where will I find love? Who will love me? Am I lovable? What is my path? This obsession with finding my purpose. All of that was very, very alive and present. 30 to about 50, I would say that my mother died when I was 44, my father died when I was 45. So I would say into my 40s, into the second phase, I still had big calamities to deal with, but that accelerated my journey of healing and integration. So it set the stage for phase two. So my second half of my 40s, as I was moving towards getting on the roof, I that's when I began to heal. That's when I began to understand and open to the big mysteries and the big questions of life. Who am I? Why am I here? What's my work? How am I meant to create a legacy? Those things became really front and center for me. And then the third phase has been much more distinct, I would say, because yes, I feel that in the third phase, 50 and onwards, I've really come off the roof. Even though human design came into my life a little later, but I found myself sharing, teaching, embodying. What does it look like to live a self-empowered life? What does it look like to stand in your truth, and embrace what you're feeling? Can you be okay with who you are on this human divine journey? Um, yeah, so the third phase seems much more distinct to me. And the second phase was a little bit more confusing. And I find that most of my sixth line clients also express that same level of confusion. They feel they're still in some ways in phase one because they haven't integrated the lessons. They're still confused about what they're here to learn, what those experiences mean, but they also feel this curiosity about the healing journey. They're either learning Reiki or they're doing shamanic journeys or they're studying yoga or something, which is moving them towards the integration phase.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and for me it was it was not like super sharp, of course, turning 30, going from the first to the second phase. And even though I was like, I don't know, 33, 35, something like that, when I quit my job and changed careers. But then came also a phase of experimentation, which I feel I'm still in and probably
Yeah.
will be in for the rest of my life, because
Hmm.
I feel all the qualities that we ascribe to all those three phases also play a role in the other phases. So
Hmm.
experimentation also plays a role in the second and the third phase. And I think
Yeah.
because we have this urge towards an authentic life, experimentation is just part of the way.
Very true.
And yeah, and also healing, because healing is not something that you do for 2 years and then
Yeah.
you're done. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this also is something that will probably prolong into the third phase. And also, what I hear sometimes from six lines is, so I'm not allowed to be a role model before I'm 50. So do I have to wait until I'm 50 to share my truth or to share my wisdom? And I feel that is something that is very untrue, because sometimes people say six lanes also come into the world or already come into the world as wise souls.
Hmm.
So they have something to give. I mean, everybody has something to give, no matter what age they are. But I myself, I'm super happy that actually, even though there are some parts of me that would have loved to know human design earlier, I found it when I was like in the beginning of my 40s. And because it probably would have given me to permission to be myself earlier. But on the other hand, for example, I started this podcast way before I found human design. So I started sharing my truth
Hmm.
before someone or a system like human design told me I'm here to share
Yeah.
my truth. So yeah, I think human design can be a beautiful permission slip or something that, yeah, I always call it a mirror that allows all the parts of you that you deep inside feel are there, but you don't allow yourself or you're conditioned to not express them. Human
Mm.
design can show you those parts. And for me, it was a great relief to see that I'm not crazy because I changed my life like 180 degrees around 30. I quit my job, like a successful career and a big position in an agency, and started from zero in a completely new field and with no experience and no plan. But human design told me, in air quotes, that it is okay. Yeah, you are
Mm.
here to live three different phases. I'm super excited to come off the roof. I
Yeah.
mean, of course, the part of me that the second line is just like, maybe I can stay up here forever. But yeah, I mean, I will always have my cave, I guess. But yeah, I'm really curious how the change from the second to the third phase will take place, and which will be around 2027 for me. So it's going to be interesting
Ooh,
times.
perfect timing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to put a pin on something very important that you said, and I don't want it to get lost in our conversation, which is this idea that because the sixth line is all about authentic living, it is going to be experiencing the third line themes constantly because authenticity is about trying something new that's never existed before that is true to us. So anytime we try something new, there is going to be a trial and error kind of flavor or theme to that, right? Whether it's an offer we're putting out into the world, whether we're cooking a new kind of meal with a unique combination of ingredients, whether we're choreographing a new dance sequence, there's going to be that kind of third line trial and error. And I think that's very important to notice and not say, why am I slipping to phase one? No, you are always going to be a line three if you're a line six. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And and with that comes the permission that you have to give yourself to make mistakes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, the path of authenticity, there are mistakes also in air quotes like left and right because you're
Yeah.
stepping on people's toes, and someone
Hmm.
will not get what decision you made, or yeah, as you said, if you want to be true to yourself, and we are
Hmm.
ever changing, ever evolving humans, we
Hmm.
always have to check in, and we always have to be willing to make those mistakes to come to a next level of our own evolution. And yeah, and for that, I think it's, even though it's tough sometimes, having this third line quality in ourselves, but not being a third line. I feel
Yeah.
there's a difference
Yeah.
between someone being a third line in their
Hmm.
profile and someone who's a sixth line but has those three line qualities. That it's it's good to have experienced those first 30 years of experimentation and
Hmm.
know, even though it's painful sometimes, there are lessons to be learned, and those lessons are valuable.
Yeah, I also find that there's a tendency to romanticize the third phase of the sixth line. Like everybody wants to come off the roof because then you have this sage-like quality, which is what a lot of people think. But my constant advice to people with a sixth line is enjoy where you are. And if you feel that you're slipping back to some of the themes of the first 30, 32 years of your life, there's something for you to learn. That's all it is. So every sixth line journey is unique. And this idea that, by 32, I should be done with phase one, and by 49, I should be done with phase two and be ready to share. So I want to be 50. I mean, there's no romanticizing this. Every sixth line's journey is individual and unique.
Yeah, and I saw on your website that you just published an article about our human side and our divine side. and or humanity and divinity. And being in the third phase and maybe embodying those sage-like qualities, if you did your work, your healing, doesn't mean you're enlightened, and
Yeah,
you're still human. So
yeah.
how does that look in your day-to-day life to living between, like in this, I feel sometimes it is a conundrum, being human and being divine. But how does that look in your daily life? Are there practices or certain beliefs that support you in, yes, living the human life on this planet with everything that comes with it, and also feeling and embodying that divine part within yourself?
Mm, such a good question. So I feel a couple of things are coming to me. One is that there's a common myth that boundaries are unspiritual, and yet on the human journey, we need boundaries. So having boundaries just makes you a healthier human. When you're a healthier human, you have more access to the divinity within you. Similarly, there's also another myth in spirituality circles that if you're spiritual, you should always be high vibe or aspire to stay in the space of good feeling thoughts and emotions, right? Always be at peace, be kind, be calm, love everyone, even if they're beating you on the head, like, because that's just another divine person. Well, I love the concept of that, and I completely agree that we are one because we share one consciousness. We all came from the same source. We will return to that source. That's my truest belief, too. And yet, we're here in human bodies, you as Sarah and me as Uma, with my boundary and your boundary, because we are meant to be in relationship and learn from each other. Not everyone embodies the highest values of being in relationship. So, one of our tasks or jobs as a human is to understand which relationships feel healthy, which don't. It is to be able to forgive, but also let the lessons of forgiveness help you create firmer boundaries. It means letting go of certain people who can't be in your life because they are not where you are, no matter how much you wish they could be. And this could be loving family members, but if they are unloving to you and they constantly keep blowing your boundaries, they don't respect you, or they make demands on you that are hard for you to manage. It means your job is to understand that creating a boundary doesn't make you unspiritual. So for me, always honoring the needs of my human self is the best way I can embody the divinity within. Because it is when I allow myself to be angry, when I allow myself to be sad, when I allow myself to make a space for when guilt arises within me, when shame comes up for me, and just not push it away and say, oh, I'm spiritual, I shouldn't be feeling any of this. This is all, low vibe feelings and they have no place in my life. No. Every emotion I feel is a divine messenger. It brings some form of communication, something I need to look at. So my job is not to push it away, but to open my arms and make a space for it in my life and listen to it. So the more human I can allow myself to be, the more divine I allow myself to be. So it's not a one or the other. It's not a conundrum. It's not confusing. When you really understand how to do this, you can just make space for all of it. So the more space I make for my human self, the more I can connect with my divinity. And then I'm able to look at other people and say, oh, that's just their human personality. It doesn't make them less divine. It's just that they don't know something. They're not seeing something that's true about them. And so they're letting this small self, the ego self, run their lives. And if that small self is intruding on my space and on my life and on my well being, then it's my job to create, maintain, and communicate those boundaries.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, because I had this visual, because I'm a very visual person, about like for once I that's something that's not new, but and I think I talked about it on the podcast before, is that I imagine feelings as like little creatures with an envelope. Here, I've got a message for
Yeah.
you. Please open it. And they are following you until you stop and you open that envelope and you go into that feeling, you connect with that feeling, you give it space and listen or feel the message that this feeling has
Hmm.
for you.
Hmm.
And the other visual that I had was if we are pushing down feelings, if we let people, energies, messages, whatever, into ourselves, into our mind, into our body, we're like clogging everything, like our
Hmm.
channel, so to say, if you want to use that word, or our connection to the divine within ourselves, because we are so busy pushing everything down, and we are so focused on, I don't know, being angry about another person, that there's no space, no connection with our higher self, our divine self,
Hmm.
whatever you want to call it. If I mean, if I experience connection to the divine within me in meditation, for example, or in nature, those are moments where I'm not in my mind, where I'm not busy with thinking about other people or problems, because I made space for those things beforehand,
Yeah.
because I looked at the problems, because I talked to the people, because I made space for the feelings. Then there's the possibility for the connection to the divine. So I feel very connected to how you describe that. Yeah.
Exactly right. We are channels of light. And just like a faucet that gets blocked when we don't allow ourselves to feel what wants to be felt, um, to create circumstances that contribute to your well-being, the faucet, the channel gets blocked. And there's no way the light inside of you can radiate and can be felt by the people you're here to serve.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love, even though that's a hard turn now, maybe it's not, I don't know, but I would love to talk about purpose for a moment.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, yeah, we could connect it to like it's our purpose to be human and divine at the same time. Um, I know purpose is a big part of your work, even though you often work with people, at least that's how I understand it, who are in situations of loss, but you define loss not so much like losing it, of course, can be that losing a loved one,
Mhm.
but it can also mean losing a relationship or losing a
Mhm.
job or having an identity shifting change within your life. All those are situations where we feel some kind of loss. But as I understand it, your work doesn't center so much around the loss, but more about what is the lesson and what is the purpose of this situation, of this experience. And and I guess also using purpose as something that you can look forward to or that you can walk forward to, comparing to maybe an old life where you didn't have that sense of purpose. Was that
Mhm.
is that somehow how you define purpose? That's what I at least read from your text, and that's what I get from your podcast. And but yeah, maybe you're just open to share your definition of purpose or how you understand and work with purpose.
For me, purpose and authenticity are very, very closely linked because when you're being authentic, you're living your purpose. You're being fully you. That's what my podcast is called, Being Fully Me. Because it's about doing the work that I came here to do, sing the song I came here to sing, which will be silenced when I die, and the world will be deprived of it because only I can sing that song. Those notes are unique to me. There's nobody else who can put those notes in that particular sequence and offer the world that song in the way that I can. So when you think about your purpose as You and your unique gift. Most people ask me, well, how do I know what my unique gift is? How do I know what my purpose is? And I say, you begin to know your purpose by getting to know you. That's where it begins. Who are you when no one is looking? Who are you when you're alone in a space and living your life the way you want to live it? Because so often we are being performative. We've become very good at wearing masks and costumes and putting on a show for the rest of the world. And we've become so good at doing these roles that these roles have become our skin. We've forgotten what it feels like to be us. Who is the person under the mask, under the costume? Because we are so addicted to what the world can give us, what we need from other people. Um, we are afraid to disappoint other people, let them down. We have to manage this person and that person. And very soon we forget what our dreams are, what our desires are. So that's the place I begin the work with a client. And when we look at someone's human design chart, that's such a good starting point to say, this is who you came here to be. This is your unique blueprint, which nobody of the 8 billion people on the planet shares. This is unique to you. So it tells you how you experience stress, how you feel emotions, what ideas inspire you, um, what is your rhythm of living, what feels good in your body, how you're meant to receive intuition, all of that. It's all there in your human design chart. And so when I do a purpose by design reading, that's where we begin the work. Because I think if we don't know who we are, we can't know what we're here to do. Because knowing who you are unlocks your dreams, your desires, your legacy, your what your contribution is, what you care about, the causes that make you tear up, whether it's animals or children or women or, you know, prisoners, incarcerated people. When you know what you care about, that's where your purpose springs from. And so for me, when my mother died, it was this huge awakening around we are here to do something and our time is precious. My mother's time ran out when she was 68, and that made me think, I have to like get on with this. There's no time to waste. And for me, in that space of life, it was about holding space for grieving people because through grief and loss is how I found my purpose. Through grief and loss, through being broken down and broken open, I realized that the masks fell away, the costumes fell away, and the true me began to emerge. So that's what I love helping people with. So for me, in one sentence, if you were to say, what is purpose? I would say purpose, your purpose is to be fully you, to embrace all your uniqueness and gifts, to let go of the masks and costumes you've been hiding behind your entire life so that your dreams and desires can emerge.
Yeah, so beautiful. And it's like, I mean, it's your incarnation cross or our incarnation cross in a nutshell. Yeah, because I mean, it's the
Yes.
cross of masks, and it's all
Yeah.
about, and I think that's also why we both are so much drawn to this topic of authenticity,
Hmm.
because and purpose, because the cross of masks is all about taking off those masks, and
Hmm.
we ourselves have to go through various iterations of taking mask off after mask and
Yeah.
until we're barefaced. And even if we take on roles, we only take on the roles that really feel like us. And
Hmm.
that's how what we're here to learn. At least that's my interpretation of this incarnation cross. And then, of course, we are as six lines here to embody that and to yeah, to share this with other people and maybe also guiding others through this process of taking off their masks and
Hmm.
finding the courage to look behind those masks. because it can be very, yeah, because you lose, as you said, those masks become your skin, and you forget that there's someone, the one that you're meant to be underneath those masks. And it can be very triggering to take off those masks because not only to, and that's, I think that's a form of grief and loss in itself, to know that maybe you've lived years, decades with these
Yeah.
masks and it was not yourself. And coming to terms with that, you invested so much time in an identity, time and
Mm.
energy and whatever, that is not you. And on the other hand, and that's a sentence that I copied from your website, there's no greater gift we give to ourselves than the gift of authentic living. Is
Mm.
that even though it's a tough way sometimes that we go,
Yeah.
a tough path, I feel, yes, there is no greater gift. And it's probably
Mm.
even more prominent for us with this incarnation cross.
Yeah, and how can it not be the best gift? Because when we are living that life is when we experience the deepest joy. And we are living life out loud. We are serving our purpose. We are showing up for our people. And we're letting other people know, hey, you think it's safe to hide behind a mask and a costume? Well, here's what true joy looks like. Be courageous enough to let it go and get in touch with your true skin and show that skin to the world because there's nobody quite like you. When we wear masks, we become one of many. And the whole journey of purpose is to be the one, be the unique you came here to be.
Yeah, and singing the song that only you can sing, that picture that you used, gave me goosebumps all over my body
Mm.
because, yeah, I think it also gives a positive sense of urgency. Like you are the only human that can sing this song in
Mm.
exactly this notes or whatever. I'm not so into music, but I'm not a connoisseur of music. So whatever, yeah, all is part of music is that it's only you with your voice, not only the voice that comes out of your mouth, but
Mhm.
also everything that you stand for, that you believe in, your convictions,
Yeah.
your desires. Only you can express those things. And it would be a loss for the world not to do that, for yourself
Mhm.
even more, but also for the world.
Yeah, so true. You said it so beautifully, Sarah.
Thank you. There's one last question that is very personal to me because I'm very curious, how much do you experience this transpersonal quality and nature of the sixth line? Is
Mhm.
there some kind of responsibility for humankind that you feel? Or is it easy for you to just live your life, touch the people that work with you, that you come in contact with? Because I feel a big responsibility for humankind, and it's sometimes it's very overwhelming.
Mm. You know, the transpersonal quality of the sixth line, the left angle cross, I feel that everything I've had to learn has been in relationship. My biggest lessons and life themes have come to me through relationships. So it's only now that I'm living a more hermity, detached kind of life. But for most of my life, I've always been in communities, in partnerships, in collaborations. And even now, the universe has a way of putting me in places where I have a lesson to learn. So I'll be pulled into a community to serve for a particular reason. And at the end of that collaboration, there's a big lesson in forgiveness or letting go or telling the truth about something. There's always a lesson. So I just feel that that's the quality of this, the left angle cross. With regard to the need to uplift humanity, definitely. I feel very connected to my community. I feel the need and the desire to inspire them to a greater level of consciousness. I dream of a world where there's more equity and liberty and justice and women's rights are protected and women are leading from the front, because I just love the gifts that women bring. We bring intuition, we bring so much wisdom and creativity and ways of sacred living that have been lost, in the dominance of patriarchy and capitalism. So I definitely feel very invested in reclaiming that for all of us, and doing my part in creating a world that is more beautiful than I found when I came in.
Yeah. And that would have been actually my last question. Well, what's your dream for humanity and your utopia as like six lines? I think, I mean, it might sound, I wouldn't say arrogant, but human design says that six lines can see further, can see what qualities humankind would be able to embody. And for me, it's sometimes painful to witness how far we still have to go to come
Yeah.
to those qualities that I feel are within every human.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, but we also see utopia and we strive to contribute to getting there as humankind. So what does your utopia look like?
I share that sentiment with you, Sarah, which is that we look at the world today and we think, my gosh, will we even have a glimmer of this? You know, there's so much wrong with the world today. There's also so much right with it, which, as the optimist in me, always encourages me to look at what's beautiful. Um, in the midst of what's bewildering, I see both, but I see that so many people are struggling and suffering. And so my utopia definitely involves a world created by women for women. That's definitely at the center of it. I feel very committed to that vision. I feel very empowered by that vision. Can we live in a world which is guided by women's values, women's intuition and wisdom, and the medicine and the sacred ways of living that we know work so much better than the kind of division we see, the the power and hierarchy themes that run the world are not about. So I envision softness, femininity, where there's more giving and receiving, where there's community, where there's a sisterhood. Yeah, that's the best way to say it. I just see a world created by women for women. That doesn't mean I exclude men. I know there are many, many, many men who are so supportive of feminine energies and, in fact, embody the best of feminine energies themselves. But I want women in leadership positions, leadership roles. I want women to be making decisions. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the world I
Yeah,
see.
beautiful. And I mean, I shared my feelings about how the state of the world sometimes impacts me, but on the other hand, as you said, I have this optimistic part within myself, and it got even more powerful within the second phase of the sixth line. Um, and for example, systems like human design. I mean, the human design is booming right now,
Mhm.
and I feel it's gonna just increase. And even though not everybody will dive super deeply into human design, just
Mhm.
knowing the basics about your own human design and maybe those designs of your loved ones, your children, and your partner or whoever is an important part within your life. Or also in like work surroundings, knowing how your colleagues make decisions and who sometimes maybe needs some alone time or who is more into connection with everybody. Just knowing your type, strategy, authority, and profile
Mhm.
alone is so powerful to shift your way of being and your way of interacting with other people. And I feel that trends like human design, I hope it's not a trend, I hope it's here to stay, but um, those systems and the all the little bubbles and pods of people who are into spirituality, even way deeper than it was 20 years ago, or
Mhm.
into personal development. I still have the vision and the hope that all those little like clusters of people do connect at some point, and I feel there may be way more than we think there are. I hope so, at least. And that at some point those clusters can join, can become one, and then have a even greater impact in the world, and maybe also inspire people who are absolutely not in touch with these topics and systems at the moment. At least that's
To
my
me,
hope.
human design seems like the medicine the world needs right now because think about it. What does human design say? It says, you came here to be you, and I came here to be me. It doesn't mean one of us is wrong or bad. It means we are both right and good. And if we both play to our strengths, we build a world where there's diversity that we can celebrate. And if that isn't medicine for our times, I don't know what is. When the world is so divided and polarized, where it's all about us versus them, there's no desire to. One of the things I've been doing, Sarah, is sitting with people who voted differently than me and trying to
Mhm.
understand, trying to listen. It feels like apprenticeship for me, for my incarnation cross, to actually just sit and listen and disarm my nervous system and say, it's okay, it's safe. It's safe to be with someone who thinks very differently. And what I'm finding is that none of those people are bad or wrong. They all have really good reasons for what they did, just like I have really good reasons for what I believe in and what I cherish to be true, right? So human design, I think, is a system. I even like to call it medicine because it it tells you that just because you're different from me, just because you're a generator with seven defined centers and I'm a mental projector with seven undefined centers, doesn't mean there's anything wrong. We just have different charts. We are meant to play to those strengths. So, what if everyone in this world could know their design, could live by their design, and celebrate each other's differences instead of feeling the need to make the other wrong from a place of fear and lack of understanding?
Yeah. And I love the picture of a puzzle that Karen Curry
Mhm.
Parker always uses. Um, and a puzzle with pieces that look all the same doesn't work. The picture of the puzzle only emerges if all the puzzle pieces are in their place and their shape and their form.
Mhm.
And then they can like be linked in the correct way and form like the whole. And that's my hope, yeah, where human design maybe can play a role in giving people permission to be their unique puzzle piece. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uma, thank you so, so much. I could talk to you for hours. And is there anything that you would like to share with listeners? Maybe something that is important that they can take a few steps towards your utopia or anything else that is on your heart right now?
Hmm. First of all, thank you. This was such a beautiful conversation. I enjoyed this so much. Um, as parting words, I would say, as a first step of claiming your sovereignty, claiming your power, claiming your uniqueness, can you share with somebody? It could be one person, it doesn't have to be with the whole universe on social media. Can you share with one person what you really feel about something that you've struggled to share, where you felt the need to align with the way the rest of the world thinks because you believe your point of view doesn't have value? Can you share with one person? Take that small step towards your authentic life.
Yeah, that's beautiful because I feel that sometimes it's even harder to share it with someone that you know well in comparison to just share it on social media.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's beautiful advice to just start small.
Yeah.
Don't overwhelm yourself with, now I have to tell the whole world who I am and who I want to be.
Right. Mm.
Just start with one step. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Uma.
Thank you,
Um,
Sarah.
maybe just a few words. People who are interested in working with you, what are your offerings and how can people find you? Because I know you are not on social media.
Yeah.
You're, at least you're not on Instagram. You signed off of Instagram, and that's a
Yeah.
very
You
wise
won't find
decision.
me
Yeah.
on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok or anywhere. I write on Substack. So you can sign up for my Substack newsletter. I send out a newsletter every 7 to 10 days. My website is umagirish.com, first name, last name.com. You can find all my latest offers there. I love to do purpose by design readings for people. If you're brand new to human design, don't know anything about it, you can also have me do a foundational reading with you. If you're grieving something, grieving an identity, the end of a relationship, the death of someone, and you feel there's something for you to learn and move through in terms of next steps, I'm happy to hold space for you. So those are some of the ways in which I would love to serve and support my people.
Thank you for sharing. And I hope everybody got a very good taste of your energy and your capacity to listen and to hold space. And yeah, so please contact Uma if you feel drawn to her and her work. So thank you so much for everything, Uma, and have a beautiful rest of your day.
My pleasure. Have a beautiful day yourself.
Ja, das war das Gespräch mit Uma Girish. Und vielleicht kannst du jetzt nachvollziehen, was ich meinte, als ich am Anfang gesagt habe, dass Uma für mich schon fast eine zauberhafte Energie hat. Sie strahlt so eine Ruhe und Weisheit aus. Ich könnte mich da wirklich reinlegen. Und wenn du mehr davon möchtest, dann empfehle ich dir auf jeden Fall in ihren eigenen Podcast Being Fully Me reinzuhören. Da gibt es sowohl Episoden, in denen es primär um Human Design geht, als auch Episoden, wo Uma ihren Lebensweg und einfach ihre Weisheit mit uns teilt. Den Link zum Podcast, den findest du in den Shownotes, genauso wie Umas Webseite, wenn du dich gerne von ihr begleiten lassen möchtest. Entweder in einem Human Design Reading oder in einer Phase der Trauer, ganz egal welchen Ursprung diese Trauer hat. Und den Link zu 6-2-Sam, dem Austausch für Menschen mit 6-2-Profil, dem Abend, der am 23. Januar stattfindet, auch den findest du in den Shownotes. Und die Shownotes gibt's unter sarah-heinen.de/Episode 335. Ich danke dir von Herzen für dein Zuhören und deine Zeit und freue mich, wenn du auch in der nächsten Episode wieder dabei bist. Wenn du authentischer leben möchtest, dann ist Human Design ein super hilfreiches Werkzeug dazu. Du kannst dir einfach auf meiner Webseite deinen Chart berechnen, dir for free dein personalisiertes PDF dazu runterladen und schauen, was daraus du noch mehr leben darfst. Den Chartrechner gibt's unter sarah-heinen.de/Chart und Sarah ohne H geschrieben. Und jetzt hab einen wundervollen Tag und sei du selbst.